Hello, everyone. This is Ed Breniger, and welcome to the Eddy Network podcast. And this is video 5 of the Changing Culture of Leadership series that I'm doing here on the podcast. Began back in December. Today is New Year's Day, and this is going to carry us through to the end of January. I have a few people who I've interviewed that will be showing up as well. But a lot of this month, I'm going to be talking about some of the things that I think are important in the context of leadership in today's world. And I am suggesting that what has transpired in the last year, year and a half, um, is significant and almost, uh, not almost, but very difficult to define with any clarity. But we have a sense of this. We know that something is changing, something is in transition. And we're going to find that it has an effect upon us and how we get up in the morning, how we go to work, how we do our work, how we conduct ourselves financially, how we conduct ourselves with our families. It's going to have a widespread effect upon us, and we're not clear about what that is. And all the wonderful books that have been written um, have not captured this sense of transition I'm seeing, and that's why I'm doing this changing culture thing, because I think it's a change of culture, not a change of purpose, not a change of structure, not a change of it's a change of the culture in which we are living in, and it's become much more complex and much more difficult to articulate what it is. And for this reason, we need to be very clear about two or three things. The first thing we need to be clear about is who we are. Who are you? And I'm not suggesting that you have to develop some kind of statement of identity that then you use with people in groups. I'm a leadership guy. That is about all I will say if I'm expressing what my identity is. Because I know that I'm a lot more than whatever language I could be using. And I'm certain that is true of all of you. In fact, I know so many of you who watch this that I'm convinced that you have far more potential than you know, and that I would like to see you just grab the idea. This is the second idea. Grab the idea that I have potential that is unfulfilled and it is unknown, it is unrealized, and I think it also probably makes me feel like I am not adequate because I'm not focused on fulfilling the potential that I have. Now, if you want to know what your potential is, you should ask someone. Ask the people that know you well. Ask the people that you trust. Ask them, what do you think my potential is? And they're gonna ask you, well, what do you mean by potential? And this is what I mean. You can say it in two ways. One is your potential is the level of change that you can create throughout your life. And so I'm talking about impact. I'm talking about being a person of impact, and that the level of change you're creating is making a difference that matters. Now, when you capture that thing, whatever it may be, that is the change that makes a difference that matters. When that becomes really clear to you, then you're beginning to scrape off some of the stuff that hides us from what our potential is. And I do not believe that you will ever fulfill your potential. You'll never reach a point and to say, now I'm done. I think it's exactly like my coach in high school said about running track. I was a sprinter, believe it or not. And his advice was always to run through the finish line, not run to it. And so in talking about potential, running through the finish line of our lives means that there is going to be some of our potential that is fulfilled after we're gone. So that means that we're setting up structures and relationships and initiatives that are not solely dependent upon us, that we invite other people to join us in doing these things. And when they capture that same sense of potential that we feel that we're capturing, and we together say we're going to go out and fulfill the potential that we have together, then we are working on something which is far greater than simply getting up in the morning, going to work, and putting your time in. So the first thing is don't be overly concerned about what you haven't done. The second thing is become more aware that your potential is latent and it's unknown. And if you could spend this year of 2026 just asking the question, what is my potential? Not trying to fulfill it, just ask the question, what is my potential? You go to work in the morning, you open up your computer, you start your day and you're asking, what is my potential here? What is my potential here? What is my potential here? And I guarantee you, you don't know that. You cannot know that until you start asking the question. So I would hope that by the end of this year, by the end of 2026, you will have come to some clarity about what your potential is, that when you express that to people that care about you, that love you, that work with you, they say, oh, yeah, I see that. Oh, yeah, how can I help you reach that? Because when we build our relationships, not around how do we just trust one another, how do we respect, but how do we fulfill each other's potential in a relationship, a collaborative relationship of potential fulfillment, then we have something going on which a lot of people never experience. Because I don't know anyone who ever thinks about their potential. Most of the people I know are just trying to get through today. They're just trying to figure out how they're going to pay their bills, or they're just trying to figure out how they're going to take care of their children after we retire. How do I help them? How do I help my children find a house to buy? How do I help my children fulfill their potential? How do I help my grandchildren find the resources to go to college, or not go to college, but do something else? We have all these pressing sense of obligation and responsibility on us, but we never talk about what is our potential. And I do believe that once we connect to what that potential is, then all those other things begin to be seen in a different way. So first thing, don't worry about the things that you have failed at or that you are inadequate at. Second is, ask the question as often as you can, what is my potential? And then the third thing is, take something that is of interest to you that seems to have no consequence, and give yourself to it a few hours a week throughout this year. Now, now I know there are people who, for example, have said, I'm going to start a Substack. I'm going to start writing on Substack. Well, what are you going to write about? I don't know, but I'm going to write. I know people who would never, you would never think about this. They decide, oh, I'm going to go learn a foreign language. So they're off learning French, or they're off learning Spanish, or Russian, or Mandarin Chinese. They're taking something which is of interest to them. It's a curiosity, and they're going to say, I'm going to give myself some time to this during the course of this next year. And maybe I only have 2 hours a month. But at the end of the year, that means I will have given myself 24 hours of attention to this one idea, this one question. And be faithful to it. Be faithful to it. But you can be faithful to it because you have not overloaded your life with obligation and pressure to perform. Instead, you have made it simpler to see your potential and simpler to take something which is going to add to your life, and it's going to open up what you didn't know was there. I did this past year. Back in February, for a couple of years now, I've been working on what should be the follow-up to my Circle of Impact book. And what I came to conclude as a result was that book was not what people were looking for. And so I took all that and I just put it on the shelf. And I decided that I would take a sabbatical. I started a sabbatical in March, and principally it was a sabbatical from writing. I mean, I would still write the introductions to the podcast, both on my Substack and on LinkedIn and Facebook, and I would still do that, but I wasn't writing long form essays. And instead, I decided I'm going to go read things which I haven't looked at in decades. So I read T.S. Eliot's poetry, in particular the Four Quartets and the Wasteland. I read Shakespeare, in particular Macbeth. And I read William Faulkner. And in particular, I read The Sound and the Fury. And all of that, if we put it into a box, had to do with where my questions were, which was about time and reality. And two things emerged from this. And if you've been following my writings, you know, since June, you'll know what I'm talking about. First thing I came to was that I saw that the world that we live in really wants to deny that time has any bearing. And what we live in is what I call the eternal present. And I'm writing a novel. I've created a little phrase that a philosophy professor in this novel uses, which is, there is no past nor future, only the now. Everything that once was in time has vanished into simulation. So it picks up on the stuff I was doing with the spectacle of the real. But what I realized was that a lot of people don't have a relationship to their past, and therefore they don't have a relationship to their future. And if you don't have a relationship to your future, how can you know what your potential is? So when we talk about potential, we're talking about who do I want to be remembered as? What is going to be my legacy when people gather for the memorial service of my life? And if you don't believe there's any time, then why even have a memorial service? Because your present is gone, and you have there's no reason for you to be even considered at that point in time. And I know you think that's ridiculous, and you think it's ridiculous because we actually do live in time. We live in the continuity of the past, the present, and the future. And so the eternal present is really a way of describing something that is a false reality. And the real reality is what I call generational memory. We remember what has transpired before in our lives. And if we're close to the people that we grew up with, our families, then we'll have a generational memory of our families, our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, our great-great-grandparents. I mean, that's very much true in my life. I did a dinner with a family after having talked about this with one of the members of the family, and I was invited to come to their house, and they were bringing members of their family to their home for what they called a genealogy dinner. And they invited me to come and speak. And I said, well, I'll talk for 5 minutes and we'll have a conversation about this. And what I discovered, because I was asking questions, I discovered how rich and deep their connection to their past as a family was. And my response to that, and I said this to them that night, I said, what I'm seeing here is that there's an ethos that defines your family. There's something as a family that's just not a name, and it's something that has transcended time, and it continues to be present with you, current generation, past generations, future generations. And as I said that, they all said, yeah, that's really true. And I bet you it's true for many of you in your families where you're very close and you have talked about the past. So that's what generational memory is. So this is what I was doing by taking something which I was curious about and spending some time on it. Now, I had a lot more time than maybe many of you, but I spent a lot of time looking at time and reality, coming up with this idea of generational memory and defining what the eternal present was. And that's why I'm suggesting that potential is a worthy area of thought as we live our lives day to day. So I spent 4 months on my sabbatical. I ended it by going out to Wyoming and spending several weeks there. One of my favorite places in the world. I used to live out there, but so I came home and I began to write. I've gone into a new direction. Let me just put it this way. And I'm writing a novel. And the novel is really geared towards young adults who have found that they do not fit well into the world that my generation, the baby boomers, have created for them. And I'm trying to address that. And the way I see this is that we are giving them answers to questions that they haven't asked. And we expect them to follow our lead. That's our arrogance. We think that we've figured out things, and we expect younger generations to do what we do. But what they don't realize is that the cultural conditions of my life, of my childhood, and my adolescence and my young adulthood are no longer present for millennials and Gen Zs and Gen Alphas. It's a different world. So the book is called Answers to Questions Never Asked, and the questions will be discovered by the protagonist of a book, and his name is Robert, who realizes what I've just described, that he's being given all these answers, and he doesn't know where the questions are that would produce those answers. So he's going to take off and he's going to discover things and he will become involved in some intrigue because of it. And so that's the world we're living in. So that's why I am suggesting that over this next year, you're you're asking questions, you're asking questions. And and it's not that you're going to go find the answers. You're asking questions. And I would suggest that you write your questions down and learn how to ask the right questions. What are the right questions? The right questions are the ones that do not have answers yet. Because if you're asking questions that already have answers, that's not going to help you very well. But if you're asking questions that don't have answers yet, then you're placing yourself in a position where your communication, your conversations with people will expand upon those questions so that you will discover things that you would never discover in the past. So I'm suggesting that you not worry about whether you've been successful or whether you're inadequate or you got all this stuff weighing on. I am suggesting that first of all, you ask the question, "What is my potential?" And you ask that. If you ask it every day, it'll become clearer pretty quickly. But at least throughout the course of this year, ask the question, "What is my potential?" And my potential is, what is the difference that my life will make that matters when I'm gone? And then the third thing is ask the question, what is it that I want to know, but do not feel like there are any answers to? And when you begin to frame those questions, then you're going to find that there are other people who are asking the same question and also do not have the answers. So that's what I'm suggesting. For me, I'm going, um, my questions are having to do with how to write this novel. I've never written a novel, and how to take the material that I've written over the last 15 years. There's about 200,000 words that I've written over the last 15 years that I think needs to be refined into really what the next nonfiction book, the book that follows the circle of impact. See, I've actually come back to, yes, there is a book to follow, but it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. So I have to weed 200,000 words down to 50, and I have to figure out how to do that this year. So, and many of you will be surprised by this, but what it means is that now I have a reason to go start using AI. See, we all can change, but make sure the changes that you are facilitating in your life leads you towards greater clarity of what your potential is and builds upon the curiosities that you actually have and be willing to change if that is where your questions lead you. I thank you for your watching the podcast. I thank you for reading my Substack. I thank you for all of you who have bought copies of my 8 books that you can find on Amazon. I thank you for all of that. Um, you know, almost it was 8 years ago. It was 8 years ago when that first book came out, and I wondered after the launch of that book, I wondered um, where we sold 41 copies on launch day. Am I doing the right thing? Is this something that I should be giving myself to? Or is it really, really just time for me to retire and settle in and enjoy a peaceful life? And pretty quickly I realized that's not my personality. And so I have followed the things that I've described to you today, at least for 10 years. And I look forward to seeing where it leads into my elder years, even though I'm already there, but I don't feel that way. I would love to hear from you. I'd like to know what you think about your potential. I'd like to know what you think are the questions that you have. Um, and I'd like to know to what degree that you would like to be a part of a conversation about this. I am talking with people all the time about this, but it's all these kind of one-off things. And if you'd like to be a part of a larger conversation, let me know because I will do something in response to what you all say to me because I appreciate the fact that you appreciate what I'm doing. So Happy New Year. May it be the best year of your life, and may you find that your potential becomes something tangible and real, and you begin to see it unfold in your life. Thank you, and we'll see you next time here on the Eddy Network podcast. Bye-bye.